any business activity, any business proposition, any business strategy we keep the purpose at the back of our mind, and it is our soul. We will never be going extinct, and our business will be always sustainable. To talk about that, let me introduce Mr. Sumanth Perumalla, Managing Director, CEDAR Business Ventures Private Limited.
First of all, I want to thank Mr. Sandeep for inviting me to be part of this Bankable Business Summit, which is, I think I was just talking to somebody, a couple of people during our tea break, and they said that we need more of these. And that just talks about the lack of networking and the lack of connecting into the community is visible, especially after the last 2 years. We've all been through some brutality of a lot of loss, especially the business world and the commerce world. So I just want to kind of bring about a few thoughts and some statistics before I talk about the purpose, which kind of really defines the very core value of any business. I'm a first-generation businessman on both the sides of our families. When I remember, around my final year of graduation, when I was talking to my parents and said that I want to go into business, and they said, do you know where you come from? You look at both your parents' side, we never had anybody into business. And that was almost like a lid that's been put on us to say that business in India, at least, I'm speaking from our Indian concept, is the survival is to certain communities which have been successful in business from generation after generation. However, in the last 15, 20 years, things have radically changed. And this change has to be adapted by everybody, regardless of what community we come from. Now, growing up in our early 90s, when I was in college, we had only 3 streams for our future, either to become a doctor or an engineer. And then just computer science or IT industry just started to come into India, and that was the new thing. Otherwise, everybody were preparing for the government exams. Either you get into the government or the railways, or you become a doctor or an engineer. But today, if you look at, things have radically changed. And this change has to be embraced, because with the globalization and the access to information, access to products, access to service across the globe, we need to radically change the way we think. And if we do not change and keep up with our thing, then we would surely be out of business. And so that is something that has been inspiring me a lot. And this is my 14th year in business, apart from other things that I'm involved in. We do a lot of charitable work. We are involved in religious works. But this has been our bivocational. Now, I was reading something very interesting. This is what it says. In the year 2021, in India, we had 65,861 startups. Even during the pandemic, prior to pandemic, the numbers are staggering. But when you look at the statistics during the pandemic, it's 65,861. Out of these 65,861 startups, 80 to 90% of the startup companies fail right in the first 5 years of inception. Now, there has been a study that was done. What is the reason that these startups or companies fail? A lot of times, the ideas are great, and there are different factors that will affect them. There are sometimes, lack of funding. A lot of other things are involved in. But one of the primary purposes why the startups fail is lack of focus, vision, or purpose. And so I want to kind of talk a little about, just to go back sometimes to the basics, something really important, just to go back to the basics, because if we keep our purpose right in front of us, because your purpose defines your process. We are living in a world, sometimes, if you're very strong on your purpose, there may be times when we have to change our process, but if your purpose is strong, then you would eventually get to where you have to get to. So, both Bill Gates and Warren Buffett were asked about one factor that was responsible for their success. Two successful businessmen in the in the Western world. And this is what they said: never lose sight of your focus or your purpose. And that's a classic example of two successful businessmen who've made a mark in this world. Said, do not lose focus on your purpose. To understand how we can focus on our purpose, let's look at a few things. The first one, a majority of the startups or businesses, their purpose is revenues. Now, nothing wrong in revenues. In fact, yes, businesses are meant to generate revenues. Businesses, if there is no revenue generation, you might as well call it a charitable organization or a foundation. But what a successful model defines is your purpose, not your revenue. When you're strong on your purpose, when your purpose is defined, when your core value is defined of your business, it helps you to stick around your core values in order to be successful. And then revenue is a byproduct of the business or the purpose. Now, most of the businesses are primarily focused on generating enough revenue to be sustainable. Business owners may have a strong personal sense of why they have formed a corporation or a business, but the purpose is not always verbalized, or it is never reflected in their businesses. So that's why purpose is really important. Revenue should never be the focus, even though that's the most important thing. Revenue is one of the byproducts of a great business purpose. Your business purpose should serve and give back into the community. If your purpose, either you're doing a product or a service industry, all right? I'm talking to both the sectors. It says that if it is linked to give back into the community, the longevity and the sustainability of these businesses are much more higher than, people who are more focused on revenue, which is more short term. Let me give you a few examples. A classic example on the innovation of the Tata Nano car. It was said, and Mr. Ratan Tata put this article on Instagram, said, while he was going back from office or going to the office, he sees a middle-class family on a motorbike, mom and dad and two kids on a rainy day. That inspired him to say, what can I do to make a four-wheeler that is affordable for the middle class in India? That was the purpose for him to go back to work on the process to cut down the cost to produce a car that is affordable. All right, let's look at another one. Swiggy was invented with the need of a desperate middle class, working class peoples wanting somebody to buy food for them and deliver home. And today you see it's a multi-million-dollar company, and you see a lot of those other businesses sprouting up, which is amazing. But the purpose of this entire business was, how can I help you on a day when you get back home tired and you never had time to cook? Somebody can go buy and deliver it home. Amazon changed the entire e-commerce approach. The purpose of this business, when people do not have enough time to go to a shop to buy stuff. Housekeeping services, maid services, especially in the Middle Eastern countries and in the Western world today, maid services are one of the most fetching and lucrative businesses, if you see. It's all about serving with a purpose. If there is a purpose to your business, then your purpose defines your process, and your process defines, what your values. So these are some of the examples that I've given to highlight the need and the importance of the purpose in our businesses. A few questions to reflect on. What inspired you to establish your business or your business idea? What's your core inspiration? Sometimes an idea that comes into our mind, or an inspiration, or you see a lack in the community. All right? Unlike today, if you see the most aggressive businessmen are the first and the second generation businessmen. If you look into some of the stats, it's staggering to see most of the family established business of fifth or sixth generation businessmen tend to be at status quo and just be mediocre without the need for expansion, because there is a certain kind of revenue generation that the family got used to. It's only in the last 15 to 20 years, the younger generation who has aspirations to advance their businesses are kind of stepping into more adaptable methods to define their process. That's why our purpose is really important, because once our purpose is right in front of us, it helps you make the right decision. You can say no to a lot of things. You will say yes to a lot of things. It helps you to take calculated risk when you know the purpose of your business. What's interesting about your founding story? I was reading a couple of articles, and it says a company which has a story to tell. Or, we do a lot of exports, and in our exports, one of the common questions which I have never seen people ask about 10 years ago, of late people started to ask, like, what is it that you give back to the community? Part of your purpose is that you have to inculcate something to give back into the community. How much, where, it's all up to you. But in the giving back into the community, it helps you to actually become more purposeful. Now, I remember 8 years ago, we had established a BPO center. We had about 48 employees, and we were servicing some of the banking sectors in the US and Canada. We were lead generating for financial corporations for house loan and mortgages. And as we were developing this, that was the first time we actually ventured into inviting a lot of people for interviews. Just listening to some of the stories while we were interviewing people, it moved our heart and it made us think about, we said, we are going to do this more often, because when you are focused on your purpose somehow kind of reaches back into the community in terms of creating employment, in terms of creating opportunities, in terms of creating and inspiring new entrepreneurs, which was not heard of. As I said, in the early 90s when I was graduating, it was unheard of. But when we saw that there is the need in the community, and when you think, how can we give back into the community? If that becomes part of your purpose, I'm telling you, it's going to be a long term. And the effect of what you invest into the community is always going to come back somehow into our businesses. A couple of other questions to think about. Is there a specific cause your business is supporting? I mean, these are all, if you look at any of the multinational or successful businesses across the globe, there is a very strong wing, part of their business that's going back into the community, which probably a lot of our businesses earlier have never thought about it. But today, I mean, even if you look at the corporate social responsibility, the government made it mandatory for companies to be giving out something into the community. If we make that as part of our purpose, there is this magical returns that will come back, because people always believe that what goes around will come back. A meaningful purpose requires a thorough understanding of what the business is doing currently, today. And the next question that we have to ask about that is what it plans to do next, and where it hopes to get in the future. Your purpose will help you set up periodical goals and these milestones in our lives so that we can achieve them one after the other. There are times when we are not really achieving anything, but it's always good to have goals set up in front of us. Now, this morning, I know that there are a lot of businessmen and women who are sitting here. I'm kind of asking you to revisit your purpose. Because sometimes when you revisit your purpose, it just helps you to define the process. And in the process, sometimes you may have to cut off a few things. Maybe you have to restart a few things. Maybe there are some things that you need to get back to the very core value of why you've started your business. Because the purpose kind of draws you into a place of success. What's your next plans? Dream big, because somebody said if your dreams are not big enough, that if you can achieve them by yourself today, then it's not a dream anymore, because dreams are meant to be big enough that you cannot achieve them today. The strategy is to identify your purpose. Consider top 3 or 5 core values of your company. What are your core values? As I said with this example with a BPO that we were running, we've decided, one of our core values was to create opportunities. I'll give you an example. There was this young fellow who came for an interview. He was still studying. He was pursuing his B.Tech. And I think in his 3rd year, he came and he faced the interview. And I said, don't you want to study? Because you're in the 3rd year, in a year's time you will finish. He said, my father passed away, and he said that I'm pushed to become the breadwinner for my family. And then I said, how are you planning to do this? Because he said, I want to work here at night, because we were servicing the Western time zone, so we were working at night. So he said, I want to work here in the night, and through the day, I want to study. So, and the manager who was interviewing him said he really did very badly. But I was moved by his story, and I said, giving an opportunity to one young fellow wouldn't really cost us anything, because we would always have, a list of other people that we can always shortlist and always bring back. And so I just said, okay, let's give him an opportunity, because I was moved by his story. And we gave him this opportunity. After the first month, the second, third, fourth month, 3 consecutive months, he was the top salesperson in our company. That little story turned my entire focus. And I said, the purpose is really important. And I kind of redefined our purpose. I said, creating opportunities in the community. Because you would never know how, what you do affects the life of so many people. Your business is one of the strategic approaches to the economical development of this nation. And a lot of times we don't envision that. We think we are too small, we don't have many employees, we have our lacks. And sure enough, we have our own struggles, and we still want opportunities to come and grow. But in what you have right now, you can still make an impact in the community. And that lesson taught me something, and I said, all people need is an opportunity. And you will be surprised how creating those opportunities, if you redefine your purpose, how it's going to come back to help you grow your business. Now, this is something really important, okay? Listen to this very carefully. Consider other companies that you admire, and what would you want to emulate and not imitate? It's not about imitating another company, but some of the top companies that you follow, maybe in line with your business, or maybe in line with your passion, or maybe in line with what you're thinking. Just, emulate out of that, because there is something that we can already learn, because they've been in the business for a while. And today, with the access on internet, that access to information on internet, we can easily learn so much to adapt and improve and constantly keep evolving and emulating into something unique that we have. This was a very important question that was asked to a lot of businessmen across the world. And I want us to ask ourselves this question. This is a tough one. Assume your company went out of business in retrospect. What would you want it to be known for? What legacy would you like the company to leave? Probably we would never think like that. I'm a small businessman. I've got a small establishment. Maybe I have this. How can it make a difference? It all starts with a dream. It all starts with a purpose. And if your purpose is big enough, then your process can navigate you towards your success. The next one is, now that it says, what are the goals of your company, and what are the things that matter the most to you? Because these goals naturally emerge from what you value the most. Some of the top goals. I was when we established about 4 companies, and every company that I work with is a chartered accountant. I've always told him this. I said, there are 2 things that you can do in India: evade taxes, avoid taxes. And I've always told all our people, I said, avoiding tax is a legal system that you can actually be involved in saving money legally. Now you all know what we're talking about, evading taxes, all right? So that's been our value. And I said, when you do the things right, in the right way, I've always believed in that you can run your business with great confidence, not fearing who would raid your business one day. Especially getting some licenses. When we were involved, we worked with Reliance India, back when Reliance, the older phone, not the Geo, the earlier Reliance, we used to promote a lot of packages for them, and we were into bill collection. At that time, we've seen, there are so many things that, as a company that you can do. But when you actually stick to a certain value, when you actually stick to a certain values, and to apply for licenses, it's not easy. But when you stick to the right values, your core values, it may take a while, but once you get through that, you actually have a great confidence to run your business, in boldness, not really fearing about a raid or somebody coming in and trying to, sort things out, constantly working under fear. And that's part of your goals and your values that you define. I want to encourage you today, just revisit your purpose. Revisit and look at if our purpose defines our process, if our purpose defines our value systems, if our purpose is inclusive of giving back something into the community. These are some of the success mantras that you see globally in the business world. So I wish you all the best as you pursue and move ahead. And I wish and I pray that this session would be of some inspiration and help to you. Thank you so much.